In this video, I wanted to talk about 10 reasons why I don't trust the mainstream media, also sometimes referred to as MSM. Yeah, so 10 reasons why I don't trust MSM. Um, so before I even give the first reason why I don't trust mainstream media, I just wanted to explain that um, there are 6 companies that own almost all media, and these are mainly based in the US. But if you've ever noticed, when the news that's presented to us is, I don't even know of a single case where, when you're talking about major events, where say the local news in our country contradicts what's being said by um, by the news media in America. They always seem to parrot whatever is said by American media. So the 6 companies that own almost all media. First one is National Amusements, then there's Disney, then there's Sony, then there's Viacom, then there's Comcast, and then there's Time Warner. And when we go to Revelation 18, the second part, Revelation 18:3, the second part of that verse, it talks about the merchants of the earth. Now, a merchant is basically like a businessman, or a businesswoman. And it says that these merchants of the earth have been made rich by Babylon the Great. So these media companies that I've mentioned, they are actually owned by merchants, the same merchants that are being described in Revelation 18, as well as other merchants who are not necessarily involved with the media. But yeah, so the Revelation 18, the almost the whole chapter is talking about how the merchants of the earth are made rich by Babylon the Great. Just for emphasis, that includes those involved in media, such as Ted Warner, who founded CNN, and then you got Bill Gates, was also started Microsoft, which is also involved in media as well. So the first reason I'm going to give for not trusting the media is the issue of wars. Now, there's a book which I think most of you know, which is called The Art of War, written by someone called Sun Tzu. But according to my research, Sun Tzu wasn't a real character. He's a fictional character. And basically, the book is actually a Jesuit war manual. But I won't get into that right now. I just want to say that in that book, it says all warfare is based on deception. So it actually says all warfare, not some warfare. All warfare is based on deception. That includes the war in between Ukraine and Russia. That includes some say it's a war, but it's not a war. It's a genocide that's happening in Palestine, based on the alleged events that happened on October 7th, 2023. So that's a deception as well, because actually Hamas, which we're being told is a terrorist organization, was actually founded by the Israeli government and is funded by the Israeli government. So that event allegedly happened so that the state of Israel can have a pretext for bombing Gaza and pushing out the Palestinians. So maybe I've mentioned some other wars, but the one that's personal to me was the war in Iraq, the one that started in 2003, because at that time I was in the British Army, and in November 2003 I went to Iraq and served there for 6 months. I think I left in May 2004. I mean, even the dates. I remember the dates very well because that was quite a major event in my life. So So the reason for I mean why it was mainly the British and the Americans, but I know that the other NATO countries were also involved as well. The reason that was given for that war was that Saddam Hussein was actually a puppet of the CIA. He was actually put in power by through a coup by the CIA. But the reason why they took him out was because he was now selling, because Iraq is an oil-rich country. Saddam Hussein and the Ba'ath Party were selling oil in euros instead of the US dollar, which is the reserve currency of the world. So I think that's the main reason why they basically went to take him out, along with the Ba'ath Party, not just Saddam Hussein. But the reason that was given, of course, the Americans and the British couldn't come out and say that, oh, we're going to take Saddam Hussein now because because he's selling oil in euros and not in US dollars. They couldn't say that, so they said that he had WMDs, which stands for weapons of mass destruction. Which, to be honest, when they started talking, when the this talk of weapons of mass destruction was being spoken about before the war actually began. I think I was towards the end part of my training in the army, and I think even at that point I knew that that was false, because I was starting to do quite a bit of study, especially reading my Bible, and understanding prophecy. So I just I just felt that was an excuse basically to go in. But anyway, we went, because and also when you're in the army, you're not supposed to question things. You're just supposed to follow orders. So that turned out to be a lie. And then when it came out that it was a lie, that Tony Blair and Alistair Campbell and George Bush Jr. and all their cronies had told lies about the real reasons for going to war with Iraq. They then started talking about regime change, which is, I believe that's against international law. You're not supposed to go into another country to change the regime. Those kind of things should be dealt with internally within the country. So yes, no, I think everyone knows now that the war in Iraq was based on lies. So I just want to mention some other wars as well that have taken place, especially in more recent times, which have turned out to have been based on lies. You've got the war in Afghanistan, which they said that that happened because Osama bin Laden and his followers. Let me say it this way. Let me say it the way they've said it. That's Osama bin Laden planned the 9/11 attacks from a cave in Afghanistan. That he sent these 19 hijackers to hijack planes and basically fly them into buildings. So I mean, we all know that's. I shouldn't say we all know that, because there are still some people out there who actually believe that narrative. But if you look at 9/11, all the events happened within America. So and also it's interesting that on 9/11 that there were two planes that went into two buildings, but actually three buildings collapsed. There was another building which is not normally spoken about, because it kind of shows that the whole story is false. That there's a building which was called Building 7, which actually collapsed as well on 9/11. That building wasn't hit by a plane. So there are many architects and engineers who have said that all those three buildings, the two twin tower buildings and Building 7, were brought down by controlled explosions. So I know that the narrative that Osama bin Laden attacked America on 9/11 along with his followers, that narrative is still being stuck to up to today. But if we do a bit of digging, you find that that's not true. And the bin Laden family were actually in business with the Bush family as well, because George Bush Jr. was involved in the crude oil business. So another one was World War I and World War II. That was also based on lies. I mean, a good book to read is one that I mentioned in my videos where I spoke about 20 my 20 favorite books to read. I mentioned that there's a book by a man. He's late now, but Edmund Paris. He said that World War One and World War Two were started by the Catholic Church. So one of the reasons for war as well, besides the fight over resources, it's actually a tactic to depopulate the earth. So there's also the Vietnam War that was based on a lie. Vietnam War, the Americans went into Vietnam because the media, once again, and the politicians lied that that some Vietnamese had attacked an American ship. Later on, that turned out to be a lie. But look at how many lives were lost. I think it's over 58,000 Americans were killed in Vietnam. And there's a man called Avro Manhattan who's written many very good books. One of them is called Vietnam, Why Did We Go? In which he states the reasons for going. I won't get into too much detail right now because otherwise the video is going to be too long. But Syria as well. Very recently, I think at the time of making this video, I think it's coming up to a month now since Bashar al-Assad and his family, who basically fled from Syria and went to Russia because Syria was taken over by rebels. We know that the rebels were funded by Israel and the Americans, and there's in the past, let's say 10 to 15 years, the excuse for going into some of these Arab countries has been that there's Al Qaeda there, you know. So, but or ISIS, and some have said that ISIS actually stands for Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. There's actually a very good video on YouTube about that, but yeah. Another one is Libya, and if you look at a lot of these countries, they've got a lot of resources. One of them mainly being oil, because even before the government in Syria was pushed out by rebels, the Americans had gone in and occupied. I believe it was like a third of Syria, and the parts that were occupied by the Americans were places where there was oil. Same thing happened with Iraq as well. When the Americans went into Iraq the very first time, they sent their soldiers straight to the to places where there was oil, so they could the American soldiers could protect those places. And we've got the genocide in Palestine, which I think I mentioned, and it's interesting that the motto for Mossad, the Mossad motto is, by way of deception thou shalt do war. So once again, it's a very similar statement to the one in The Art of War by Sun Tzu, you know, where it says all warfare is based on deception. So my number two reason for not trusting the media, mainstream media to be more specific, is the moon landing hoax. I think if you look at the footage now, I think you can tell that it's fake. And there's someone who wrote a book, someone called Bart Sibrel, who said in his book that the footage that we've seen of the moons, the so-called moon landing, were actually filmed in two hangars that had been joined together, and that the so-called astronauts were actually walking on concrete that had been crushed. You know. So as far as based on my research, based on what I've studied, I don't believe that anyone has been to the moon, that anyone has actually walked on the moon. That's false. A lot of these things, as you'll see, things that are pushed out by the media, they are basically, one of the main reasons is to discredit the scriptures, you know, to make you doubt God's word. So number three, the spinning globe Earth. Yeah, so that's the belief that we live on a ball that's spinning in space, and you know, something like 66,600 miles per hour flying through space. And if you look at some of those figures, you find that you know, the number 666 keep coming up, even the so-called tilt of the Earth.